Well, hey there, everybody. This is Tom with Tom's Talk Show, and today we're going over number 26. We're on number 26 of Glenn Beck's 40 Days study to reclaim our commitment to God and to country. So, again, I'm not affiliated with Glenn Beck or the Blaze or anything else, just a guy in his office with a microphone and a camera. So, I do notice kind of an odd thing that some videos will get several hundred views and some videos will get only a few, so that's very weird. But we're pushing forward and hopefully people will catch up. All right. So, reconsidering the Beatitudes part 1. Okay, this is part 1 of 2 parts. So there's a guest author here, Skip Moen, who's an international Bible teacher. So he wants us to read Matthew 5, 1 through 16. So we can flip over there. And this is the Sermon on the Mount. So seeing the crowds, he went up onto the mountain, and when he sat down, he called his disciples came to him. He opened up his mouth and taught them, saying, "Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted. Blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they shall be satisfied. Blessed are the merciful, for they shall receive mercy. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called sons of God. Blessed are those who are persecuted for righteousness' sake, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are you when others revile you and persecute you and utter all kinds of evil against you falsely on my account. Rejoice and be glad, for your reward is great in heaven, for so they persecuted the prophets who were before you. You are the salt of the earth, but if salt has lost its taste, how shall its saltiness be restored? It is no longer good for anything except to be thrown out and trampled under people's feet. You are the light of the world. A city set on a hill cannot be hidden, nor do people light a lamp and put it under a basket, but on a stand, and gives light to all in the house." Yes. Okay, let's switch back here. Okay, yes, I just got a new little light at the store. This is a little Ryobi little tiny light. This thing gets super bright, and it can sit on things and stuff. Has a little tiny battery. Pretty cool. It's hard in a dark room. You turn that thing on and just light everywhere. You can't hide from that kind of thing. Okay. Well, we think of the Beatitudes in the Gospel of Matthew. We usually view them in some sort of spiritual blessing instructions. We read, "Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven." And we think, if I just become poor in spirit, somehow God will give me something in heaven. We treat the Beatitudes like this, imagining that each one asks us to develop some kind of spiritual attitude so that we reap God's rewards. In fact, many Christian commentaries view the Beatitudes in this way. But this isn't what the Beatitudes mean. Our English Bible translators of the Beatitudes really depend on the Latin version of the early Christian church. That's why the Bible that I have, there's this system called Strong's Numbers, and I can tap on any of the verses, and then it'll show me the original Greek, some of the original meanings, and some of the original Hebrew and all their meanings and what it can mean. So it can really help you dig down into what verses actually mean. And if there's some kind of, question about whether, you look at 2 different translations. Well, let's look at the original Greek. Let's look at the original, Hebrew and see what was actually being said. And then that gives a lot of context to what was being said. Okay. In the Latin translation from the Greek text, the first word in each of these verses was rendered as beatitude, a word that means to bless. That's why we call these sayings the Beatitudes. But the Greek word makaroi And the Hebrew word ashereh don't mean blessing at all. They mean something like happy or lucky. If we want to know what these sayings really mean, we need to know the meaning of the original language. Like I said, I go and do that back and do that stuff all the time. Jesus spoke these verses in Hebrew, of course. In Matthew's gospel, they are translated into Greek and then translated into English for modern readers. But the original language and the original meaning must be found in the language Jesus spoke. In that language, the Beatitudes aren't blessings at all. They are descriptions of spiritual paradoxes. They use the Hebrew words to communicate something that doesn't seem to make sense on the surface. When we read the Beatitudes in the original, we find some very strange connections. Jesus really talks about people who are experiencing life's disasters. And then he shows a deeper meaning in these terrible things. Jesus communicates these sacred paradoxes with a pattern that was familiar in the ancient world called mercerism. Okay. Yes, different words in the Bible and culturally mean different things. When you like, there's certain parts in the Bible in the New Testament where they talk about, he's in his tent. We have new tents and old tents. We have permanent tents and we have buildings and things like this. Well, to a Jewish person, we just think, oh, they had a tent. Okay, whatever. To a Jewish person, that relates back to when they're in the 40 years in the wilderness and they had these tents, and those tents were very important to them. They were part of they had tents that were for, kind of tabernacle. They were tents that they had with them, and that was like their living and their dwelling. They didn't have like kitchens and things like that in them. They were just their dwelling places for their families. And they had to keep them, and God kept those tents from falling apart and tearing up and going bad for the whole 40 years. Imagine having a new nylon tent that we have today, and having that last for 40 years. I don't think it would make it. Okay, this is a pithy expression of happiness related to the values of this world. One example: he who has no possessions is free of many worries. We have the same sort of style of famous sayings from Benjamin Franklin: early to bed, early to rise, or a stitch in time. For the Greeks, these sayings were about children: wealth, love, honor, and fame. The content is not crucial to us. It is the pattern that is important. The pattern is extolling good fortune and release from the world's troubles, either through early gains or inner peace and piety. Mercerisms often general advice about living by pointing out those who would receive favorable status in this life. The same pattern of blessing can be found in the Old Testament's wisdom literature. In Jeremiah 17, blessed he who trusts in the name of the Lord. And Psalm 32:1, blessed is he whose sins are forgiven. These are sayings of practical wisdom with deeply spiritual connection. Unlike the Greeks, the context of these blessings is within the framework of God's favor to men. Even when the Old Testament blessings are about prosperity or success on earth, they are couched with the context of the chosen people of God. In general, Mercerism has both linguistic and instructional pattern. Linguistic pattern is the announcement of favor, who the announcement concerns, and the following relative cause that explains the reason for this happy slate. The instructional pattern is an announcement, a recipient, and a teaching about life. But something changed when Jesus employed this familiar pattern. Linguistically, Jesus' Mercerisms are still announcements, not commands or magic success formula, by the way. But the who of these announcements is specified in an entirely new way. First, the who is plural. Secondly, the ones whom the announcement applies are actually a reflection of the relative clause that contains the explanation. In other words, if we really understand the teaching, we will find that the linguistic pattern turns back on itself to tell us that the reason for their happiness is already contained in the characteristic that makes an announcement applicable. So, yeah. Each of the Beatitudes introduces a class of people who seem entirely capable of being happy. They are destitute, losers, oppressed, the ones under judgment, ones who don't get what they deserve, the ones who aren't good enough, the ones who put themselves at risk, the ones who are persecuted. Now that you have a better idea about these things, let's see what we can learn from this ancient pattern. Okay, well, we're going to have to do that in section 2. So, the mercerism, yes, is a repeating phrase of opposites kind of thing to teach something. The Beatitudes, in the Beatitudes, how does Jesus turn the typical mercerism on its head? I think he kind of lays them out in more of a godly, spiritual sense. I mean, if we go back and look at some of these, let's go back here and flip over here. Okay. So, blessed are the merciful, for they shall receive mercy. I mean, whatever, like if you're in a bad situation and you need mercy, but you're spending time giving someone else mercy, that's going to kind of turn around back on you and show you mercy, right? I mean, I often tell people when they're giving things to people, or whether they're helping and things, and they just say, they think like, well, this person doesn't need all that much, and we're here giving them this. You can kind of think that in your head a little bit, and I say, sometimes, your need to give, like we had a time when we really were doing poorly, and we could need a few things, but we were kind of doing okay. And then people would bring stuff over and food and help us out and everything. And I thought, well, there's other people that really need this more. And then I came to the kind of the thought that sometimes their need to give might be greater than your need to receive. Does that mean that you reject their gift? No, you receive it gracefully. Right? Somebody showing mercy to you, somebody, showing you kindness, and somebody being a peacemaker to you, all of those things, you still accept all of that with grace and kindness and love, just as God tells, we're supposed to love our neighbor, and the people that are coming showing you kindness are your neighbors. So, I mean, there are times, and oftentimes when we would have too much, we were able to take that and then go and bless someone else with the things that we had that were extra. So it's not a wasted thing, and you don't have to tell the person who gave you the stuff, oh, we gave it to somebody else, or anything like that. You don't have to follow the chain that everybody knows what's going on in the thing, but you can, if I'm blessed, then maybe I can bless somebody else, and then or somebody shows me mercy, then I can show mercy to someone else and follow, the chain. It's kind of a pay it forward thing, but that's kind of, the too modern kind of thing that kind of takes God out of it. Where one, I think biblically, I think God is in control, right, of the whole thing, and the pay it forward thing out in the real world is kind of that, kind of that, karma wheel kind of, thing that people try and do and stuff. So, okay. There we go. That is number 26, and we'll be continuing on. And if you got any comments or questions, you want to talk about anything, just let me know in the comments down below. And like, share, subscribe these videos for everybody else to follow along. And I thank you for watching. Take care.